Spring training is officially underway for the St. Louis Cardinals. We got a Nolan Arenado update from John Mozeliak. We've gotten some chatter from different players and the manager, Ollie Marmol, about kind of their excitement for this younger-ish team, in the words of Victor Scott, and some arbitration hearing findings from today. We always love to talk about those. So a decent amount of news to talk about from the first day of spring training on this episode of Deal on the Cards. Hey, welcome back into Deal on the Cards. I'm Josh, joined by Sandy and Andrew. As always, we're presented by 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles, and we'd love to tell you more about them later and some different, some special things going on in Packland right now. So you'll definitely want to go check them out. But today is a special day in baseball land and Cardinal land, and even though expectations for this team are very different than usual, it is the beginning of spring training, right? Pitchers and catchers reporting at least, but that is the beginning of spring training. So you've seen obviously the pitchers and catchers, but you've seen a lot of the position players show up to camp. John Mozeliak usually gives and he did like a little bit of media availability at the beginning of camp as usual, and kind of sets the stage for what has happened or not happened this offseason. You heard from Ollie, you've heard from different prospects. There's just a lot of chatter and stuff going on right now, but as it feels like the entire podcast, this whole offseason, gentlemen, we start our conversation today with Nolan Arenado. I feel like we should have had some kind of graphic and like transition thing for this whole offseason. Every time we talk about Nolan, we click it and it's just like the Nolan Arenado status update. But it finally, I know we've said this like 5 times, but it finally feels like something may happen soon. Mozeliak was non-committal to anything, obviously, and said maybe something gets done in the next week, maybe later in spring training. He expects him to report this weekend if something doesn't get done. But on the Boston side of things, I think the Boston Globe just put out an article today that said there's some legs to an Arenado deal, and that there's nothing as of last night that's in place, but at least it seems like they're moving toward it. You've got other national reporting from like Jeff Passan and other, I think Bob Nightingale even, of, hey, once Bregman signs, you could expect maybe an Arenado trade to happen pretty much immediately after, assuming Bregman doesn't sign in Boston. If he does sign in Boston, I don't know what happens. Derek Gould today reporting that there's 5, or I think Mo said there's 5 teams that are talking to them about Nolan. Gould's reported that the Yankees, Red Sox, and Padres are 3 of them. And then we've got to assume the Dodgers and probably the Angels are the other 2 teams in there with varying levels of interest. It feels like the Red Sox are like the one primary player right now. I guess, I don't know, status update. Sandy, how confident are you that Nolan Arenado is going to be traded in the next couple weeks?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, we said this last time on here, but I feel like if a deal was going to get done, it was going to happen late in the offseason. So that probably makes a lot of sense.
This is very late.
It is late. And it feels like, but I don't know. It's nice as a Cardinals fan to see the Cardinals finally feel like you have some leverage again. If you've got a bunch of teams talking to you, that feels good.
I don't know if I call it leverage.
Well,
as much
you know what I mean, though. You're not,
Yeah.
you're not being pushed into a corner to take the worst possible deal because there's only one suitor and you feel like you have to trade the guy.
Yeah.
Maybe extra bidding, like, you know, you could have some sort of bidding. I don't know. I'm not going to say a bidding war, right? Teams aren't going to be killing themselves to get Arenado. But it is nice to know that there's interest from multiple places, and maybe they can play that off each other a little bit. But I don't know. I'm not totally sure he's going to get traded still. I'm probably in the camp more than anyone of Nolan Arenado doesn't have to be traded, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it leverage, but I know I just said that, but like I think it's more at this point. I mean, I think there are various points this offseason where I definitely argued that, hey, they could actually get something in return, and something not like I don't know, some of these packages like the Tristan Casas stuff, I'm like, okay, like let's stop. That's not happening. And even like a top 10 prospect in someone's system, yeah, probably not happening. But like, could they get like anything of value? Like I thought at one point you could say that. Now at this point, I'm like, I think they could just potentially find a suitor. I don't know if they're going to get anything that's going to, I mean, they're definitely not going to blow your socks off, but I don't think they're going to get you any, like, yeah, I even like the most plugged in people are not going to be like, wow, there's an interesting arm there. It's like, that's just like the return at this point. But Andrew, what about you, man? Do you feel like a deal is going to get done here soon?
Maybe. That's what Mo said. He's like, I don't know. Like at winter warm-up, it was like 50-50. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. It just kind of feels like we need Bregman to sign before we get anything because he's Boston's first choice. And like, I don't know who else would even be interested. The Yankees, maybe. But it was reported that Boston wanted the Cardinals to take on like half the salary, which I don't know if that's something that ownership wants to do. At a certain point, I don't really know if like it's even worth it, right? You just let him play out the season. And like I say it every week where it's like, I don't care if they trade Arenado or not, because I don't think the team's going to be any worse or better with him on there. Honestly, I think it's going to be better because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get out of Nolan Gorman or any of these other guys who are, you know, trying to prove themselves for the first time. And like, I think the clubhouse stuff is overplayed, right? Like there's other guys in there that will give you leadership. If everyone's relying on Arenado to lead them, then I don't know, like there's other guys that can do that. And it's frustrating that I feel like everyone wants to see him gone for literally nothing. And I don't know if I fall in that camp. And it seems like I don't want them to trade. I'll be upset if they trade him for a prospect package that's very underwhelming. That's like a top 25 guy at best in someone's system. And they still have to eat a significant chunk of salary to even get that. Like, I don't know.
I guess at this point, I don't like get the pushback against doing something like that, because he's not like, I get that he's maybe, I mean, he was a 3-win player last year. That's something that's valuable, but it's not valuable when you're making $25 million a year. It's just not.
But
you're overpaid.
The amount is going to decrease.
Yes, but you're still overpaid. Like part of what makes a 3-win player valuable, as Brendan Donovan and Lars Newpart, is they make nothing. Sure. So that's where the surplus value comes through. Arenado like doesn't give you that value. And so at this point, like I would rather, like to your point, Andrew, I do think they're better with Nolan Arenado, but I don't think it's like a difference maker in terms of like, oh, this is a playoff team. Nolan Arenado is not without him. I think it's maybe a couple game difference. I would much rather give the opportunity to Nolan Gorman full-time to play third base and Alec Burleson to play full-time. And I'm not telling you that Alec Burleson's for sure going to be on this team in 2027. What?
There's a way for them to do it if they just sit Siani.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, then JC still not could be a prominent player. I know injuries happen, but it's the same conversation we had the rotate. It's not the exact same, but it is part of the conversation we've had the rotation this offseason of, well, injuries happen. It's like, well, also just create the opportunity then. Holding Nato just feels like you're doing both things at the same time, or you're trying to have it both ways. And I don't love it. It does clear money for the future. I think it just rip the Band-Aid off, move on. This is a new era. Get him out of here. That again, we can debate all day. I don't think the team's ruined by having Arenado in return, but at this point, I don't think the return doesn't matter. And the trading Arenado, the return never did matter. The return mattered if you're trading Wilson Contreras or Sonny Gray, because those are two players that should get you something real. But Nolan Arenado at this point, you're like, there's a reason. If he was that valuable of a player that we should be kind of frustrated with the return, then other teams would be interested. Like this is just a different scenario at this point. And even when he was in his prime, technically, the Cardinals got him for basically nothing because A, the contract, and B, there was no market for him. Now he's nowhere near the same player he was, and there's no market for him. So like there's nothing to expect at this point if you're going to move him. So if we're open to moving him, you just got to expect nothing in return at this point. It's salary relief, which is important if they want to turn this around. Because they're going to
care about salary relief. It doesn't matter.
It does matter if that's how they're going to operate.
But they're not going to use it.
Not this year, but the future. That's the point. It's like, we can't see what this offseason is going to look like. But if they're really intending to get back to payroll numbers at some point, like that space matters. It gives them the ability to do something. It gives them the ability to supplement young talent. If this team wins 82 games this year and looks really interesting, then they've got all this extra money that they can spend. They won't spend all of it, obviously. I don't think they get back to payroll numbers next year. But it gives them, like, say right now they've got 20 to 30 million of wiggle room for next year, then it gives them 40 million or 50 million of wiggle room. I think that stuff does matter. I know that at the end of the day, the DeWitts can spend however much they want to spend, and so they could just do more, but they're not going to. And so if you're going to operate on those constraints, then I want to get rid of a player that I think I can approximate the value with Nolan Gorman, and then use that cash flow elsewhere. And he's just going to, I just doubt Arenado is going to get back to what he was. I think you're hoping he maintains what he's doing, maybe slightly better, but even slightly better Arenado isn't worth the money. I don't know. That's just me, though.
I just don't think I'm as bullish on Gorman as you are then. I don't think Gorman can play third base all year. I don't like watching him play second base. I don't think he'll be much better at third. I don't think he's a good enough defender to hold down third base. I think you're going to lose a lot of value there, especially with Nolan Arenado out the door, who's a fantastic third baseman. I also just think Nolan Arenado is still a more consistent hitter than Nolan Gorman is. And I would love to see Nolan Gorman rebound this year, and I really hope it happens. But I just don't feel particularly strong about that. I'm not inclined to believe it's going to happen. I mean, he struck out 43% of the time last year.
I guess yes, but also you look at 2023 and you see the
awesome.
heights that he's able to reach. And so like the point is I want Gorman, third tries the charm. I want Gorman playing every single day to prove to me, is he the 2023 guy or even ascending past that, or is he the 2024 guy? Because the answer to that question helps me in 2026. Whatever Arenado does for me this year doesn't really help me in 2026, because then we're probably having the same conversation next year. Even if he bounces back, well, it's like, well, is he going to regress again? Like, at least with Gorman, it's either no, okay, he's not a part of my future, and so I have to go get a third baseman for the future, or JJ Weatherholt has to be that, or I go out and I know that he's my guy, and now I know I don't have to worry about third base anymore. I do understand that most of the bats are getting the opportunity, but some of those guys that could be a part of the future or not, as in Burleson, JC, and Gorman defensively, aren't getting those opportunities when Arenado's here. And then also it does affect the DH spot, because if even if Herrera is the primary catcher and catches like 100 games, there's still 62 games he's not catching. And so you're probably going to want his bat lineup for 20 to 30 of those. And so then that takes away Donovan's spot or Burleson's spot from the lineup. It does pretty much shoehorn JC out of the roster at that point.
You don't have to as the DH Nolan Arenado on days he doesn't play.
True, but I'm saying if he's the third baseman and Gorman's the second baseman, that means Donnie's the placeholder DH. And so if Ivan Herrera is supposed to DH that day, then Donovan has to replace one of those guys in the infield or the left field or right field. Like it has a ripple effect. Obviously, injuries will help with it. But I'd much rather just clear the way, because my intention this year isn't, I mean, if they make the playoffs, it's gravy. That's awesome. But the point is, this team needs to figure out how to be good again in the future. And if you're just holding on for hopes for 2025, I think it's the thing we've been frustrated by all offseason. It's like, why are they so grasping to this roster?
For sure.
So I think you move on from Arenado and you see what you've got.
I mean, I can listen to that. I just still think that if you're not even going to get Arenado's full money back, I don't want to move him for nothing. I don't want to move Arenado for nothing. If you're going to pay half the value of the contract, you're still on the hook for a lot of money. That's still a sizable chunk of money. And now you're getting no value out of Arenado instead of maybe getting some, and you're not getting anybody back. I just feel like that's a deal you don't have to make. You don't have to lose.
Well, I don't think it's no value, because you're getting the salary relief. And that matters. And you're getting information on your young players.
If it's half of his contract that you're paying down, that's terrible. That's so little money back.
Well,
that's like $10 million.
That's what happens when you have a bad contract.
Yeah, the contract is decreasing enough to me that you could survive. I don't know. And I think teams should be willing to not force the Cardinals to pay down half the contract.
I mean, we'll see what happens with it. And I don't know. They can structure it differently. It's not like the Cardinals have to send $10 million every single year. It's like they could pay down a bunch of this year, which again, who cares about this year's payroll, because they're not spending it anyway. So if they're using it to pay down some of Arenado's money, so they don't have to pay down money in future years, I'm cool with that.
Sure. If they would structure it and pay down all the money in 2027, 2028, that's fine with me. I'd be much more interested in that. But if they're just going to pay down half the money each year, it's not even going to matter in 2 years when he's only making $15 million anyway. That's literally cheaper than Steven Matz in terms of what the Cardinals are receiving.
Yeah, true. We'll see.
It's just not even that, it's not that much money at this point, because the Rockies are already paying down enough of the money.
Yeah, but again, I think the money is a real asset, but the biggest asset here is now you're getting information on your young players, because it's the frustration I have with the rotation right now, where it's or actually the better example is the end of last year. They only gave McGreevy 2-3 starts. And it's like, now you're sitting here being like, well, we're not really sure if he can be in the rotation because we haven't seen enough. It's like, it's your fault for not putting him out there more. You could have done that the whole second half and you didn't do it. That's on you. And it's the same thing this year. It's like, you could clear up third base and figure out, can Nolan Gorman play it defensively? I have my doubts, but why not see it this year? Because then you go into next year being, well, we still don't know the answer to that. So go get all the answers you can this year. That's my posture with it. I'd rather know what this roster is than next offseason. We're not playing the same game we've had the last 3 off seasons of, well, could Gorman be the guy? Could Newbar be the guy? Could Donovan be the guy? Let's make some decisions this year. And then once they know which guys are in, which guys are out, they can be strategic in trades or in free agency or all that kind of stuff. So we can move on from now stuff because it's just what we've talked about all off season. But quick predictions. I'm going to say he gets traded next week. Sandy, do you think it happens the next week?
No, I don't think it does.
Andrew, do you think it happens?
No, I feel like it's going to keep dragging on. And we're going to see him in spring training. That's fine, They'll have had a Hall of Famer in uniform technically every single year since 1908 or whatever they say.
So, is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Does he technically count as in uniform if he shows up for camp one day and then
because he'll put on the uniform?
Okay, then they have 2025. That makes sense. And then you just sign some random.
Wait, are you sure Arenado's a Hall of Famer, Andrew?
He's won like 10 Gold Gloves in a row. He's like, he's already a 61.
He's not gonna be first ballot, but
I don't think he's a 61 player.
I think he is, or he'll get there. He's maybe like 1 or 2 away from that.
I think the bar for third baseman is really high.
No, it's not.
I think it's. We'll debate it another time, but I think it's pretty clear he'll make it. So we'll see.
I think he will. I hope he does, but I'm not totally sure.
We'll see. Also, yeah. Anyways, there's some good stuff from Kareem from the chat in there. So, anyways, let's move on. Okay, so camp starting though. We talked about storylines last time. It feels like obviously the things that we're all kind of watching right now is the young talent. You have Ollie kind of talking about the young Brant Brown's impact so far and the hopes that whether it's Walker, Gorman, Yvonne, which Herrera obviously was good last year offensively, but can he continue that? Can Donovan? I think it is actually really interesting. There's a good graph from MLB Network the other day, which compared OPS pluses of Nootbaar and Donovan the last 2 years. And when they both had their first full season in 2022, they had the exact same OPS of 125, I think. Then they both dropped to 116 or 118, and then they both dropped to like a 113, 114 this year. It's like, are they just on a slow decline right now, or can they ascend back to where they were at? Burleson, all these different guys. How much are you guys buying in or going to buy in if because I mean, it's early camp, so you usually don't hear a lot of negative, right? It's usually like, oh, things are rosy and great. But how much are you guys buying into specifically this offense that disappointed a lot last year, that there's real change that is going to be seen on the field, where you have reason to hope that not all these young bats are going to perform, but that we're going to see rebounds from this group, Andrew?
I mean, it's so tough because they were so bad last year, and I see why the projections are down on them. I mean, I feel like the safest option is, say, Jordan Walker, because, like, no.
I mean, you could say it.
I think Lars Nootbaar is the one that I would look at to rebound. I don't know if it's like the safest option because he could just get hurt and miss time. That's why I said that maybe Walker was, but I just feel like if he's healthy, he'll be one of the better hitters in baseball, one of the better outfielders in baseball. And, you know, if he's healthy, it hasn't really panned out the last 2 years. So I don't know if that's really possible to like bank on. I still think his injuries are kind of weird and not really like related to certain parts of his body being weaker or any of that. Like I think he'll be fine. And I don't know. I'm just excited to see what he has in store for spring training. And I feel like out of all of the players, his improvements needed to be like he needed to make the fewest improvements because like he was already hitting really well and he just needed to stay healthy. Like Walker has real improvements that he needs to make, and Gorman obviously we just talked about, has the widest range of outcomes. He could just be terrible, and like I wouldn't be all that shocked because that's kind of what he was last year.
Yeah. What about you, or Sandy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd call it a bounce back for Nootbaar. I just put it in the chat. Like, he just needs to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
Because he's still 11% above league average offensively last year. That's a bit down from his career norms where, you know, he was 15 to 20%. But I'm not going to call it a bad year. I'm just going to call it a lost year because he just can't stay on the field. So if Nootbaar is healthy, that's fine. I think the bounce back is Walker. That's what I'm betting on. I think the talent is just too great for him to continue to be this bad. Yeah, he might not figure it out defensively, at least in the near term, and that's fine at this point. He's just going to have to be what he is out there, limit the damage, be as good as you possibly can. Maybe, I don't know, hire a fielding coordinator to work with him and figure this crap out. But Jordan Walker offensively should be a stud. I don't understand why it was so bad last year. I think part of it is the way the Cardinals handle him. They just refuse to be smart about the way they deal with him. But he should not be 30% below league average offensively. And I don't see that happening again next year. Walker had a 116 OPS plus his rookie season as a 20-year-old. That's incredible. Those are crazy numbers. He's also still younger than a lot of top 100 prospects.
Yeah.
People that are punting on him, saying he's a bust, the dude would still be a junior in college right now. So let's calm down a little bit there. He's a stud. I think he's going to be fine. and I'm banking on his bounce back.
I really liked the conversation. I didn't get to be in the room because I wasn't there that day, but Andrew caught the footage, and so I got to watch that of Jordan Walker kind of talking about his offseason, and clearly he admitted to himself that he needed the change and that he wasn't always the most he was maybe resistant was the right word, but he wasn't always necessary, and not that he wasn't coachable. But I think he kind of was like, here, I'm going to keep doing my thing. And so it is kind of a mixture of him going back to what he's good at the same time. So it's not just like, oh, I'm overhauling everything. But I think now what Brant Brown is going to be able to do is be like, here's what you're good at, Jordan. Now, how do we help you ascend rather than rework everything at once? And it seems like he's been fired up by what the work he's been able to do so far. And a lot of the unhitters were. To your point, Sandy, it's not necessarily that Nootbaar needs to bounce back because he was bad. I think it's more like, can Nootbaar be one of your more prominent bats, or is he a supplemental bat? Because a 111 OPS plus guy, that's a like 7-hole, 8-hole. Well, 8-hole that's good for like 7-6 hitter. You know, it's not when your top hitters in the lineup at a 111 OPS plus. You're about 10% above. Well, yes, for the Cardinals it is, but for a contender like the kind of Nootbaar that we think he can be, you got to get into that 120, 130 range. And I do think it's within the range of outcomes for a Nootbaar to be a 140 guy. That he could be incredible if he puts it all together. And some of that's going to be staying healthy. Or sorry, the first thing is going to be staying healthy. We all know that. But then there has been some good chatter about, like, is he too patient at the plate? Does he need to sacrifice a little bit of that top end 100 percentile non-chase rate or chase rate to go and swing at more pitches in the zone? Because when he hits them, I wrote about it the other day, like he's among the 10 best players in baseball at crushing the baseball. Like he was tied with Shohei Ohtani and gosh, I can't remember, in blasts, which is just crazy. But then the writer pointed out, which was right. It's like, well, Ohtani had X amount more swings than he did. Part of that's because he played a lot more, but also because he's more aggressive in the zone than Nootbaar is. So, like, is Nootbaar going to make some of these adjustments to be better? Is Gorman going to be able to handle the fastball again? Because he's one of his things in the minor leagues, the fastball up in the zone could get him at different times. And whenever he adjusted to the breaking ball, it feels like the fastball would start to get him again. He's been able to hit the breaking ball for the most part at the major league level. He actually crushes it when he gets in the zone. But just last year, like Gorm could not handle the fastball. And that feels like a mental thing in a lot of ways. And so, like, is he going to turn that around? Again, is Donovan, like Nootbaar, going to be a supplemental bat or a key bat in your lineup? To your point, Walker, is he going to be that guy? Herrera, can he do it over a full season? Contreras, can he maintain his level of play even though he's getting older, now at first base and playing 150 games? These are all real questions that I think we'll want the answers to here soon for sure. But before we continue on the conversation today and talking about everything that's been going on at spring training thus far, we want to thank a couple of the sponsors of the podcast. First is 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're the presenting sponsor of the Deal on the Cards podcast, located at 9640 Olive Boulevard in Olivet. They're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 on Saturdays, and they buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars around the league, including a new box set that Andrew is kind of highlighting here. So, Andrew, do you want to tell us about some new boxes that they've got going on?
Yeah, it's Top Series 1 release day, which is the first like major product drop of the year for baseball. It means baseball's back. Kareem, I know you're in the chat. This one's for you. Michael McGreevy, rookie card, his first major league rookie card is in the set. Also, my favorite card from the set that I will never give away is Eric Fetty. If you saw our social medias, you know what I'm talking about. But
Andrew, did you go to acting school?
Yeah, I did actually. That's me right there.
The best is like you like looking to the side and looking back to the camera.
Yeah, I don't. We did it in one take. But yeah, go check out 314 Sports Cards if you want some Top Series 1. I pulled some good stuff. They have Rickwood Field cards, which are like game used, like jersey patches from those. I actually pulled a Jorge Soler one. I saw the Rickwood Field logo and I was like, oh, I got a really good. And then it was Jorge Soler. I was like, wrong team. I was really sad. But you can get like Mason Wynn. You can get Dylan Carlson and Brandon Crawford out of those. So maybe that excites you. But
maybe.
Yeah.
And then we're also proud to be partnering with the Underdog Sports. They're our favorite place to play fantasy games. You can play in Missouri, Illinois, surrounding states as well. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players or just players around the league that you think are going to do well or poorly. and choose whether to go higher or lower. You can earn up to 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick and first time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries. The Super Bowl did not go well. So I don't think anyone predicted that. So that was tough.
I thought it was great.
Well, for underdog wise, I don't know if it went well for any of us. But anyways, baseball's really close.
They had a special thing where, because normally if you do more than 5 lines, it becomes a flexed pick.
Oh yeah.
And I had 6, and it would have paid out massive. And literally, I lost it in the last like 3 minutes. It was a bunch of unders. I was devastated.
I would have actually been in pretty good shape, but Saquon, I don't know if Saquon hit the yards.
No.
Oh no, I missed.
Hit 50.
I missed all of them. Yeah, that was bad. Anyways, not a great day for me on that. But anyways, check that out. Again, using our promo cards for our first free pick, and then you also get a deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So you can click the link in our bio or in the description of the video, or go check our socials to download that and check it out. So again, you can play in Missouri and Illinois and other places. But so we'll continue the conversation. Speaking of money, because I do think there's something really interesting. There's 2 parts of it, and we can go multiple directions. One, obviously the arbitration stuff happened today. I don't remember seeing yet if Puante's number came out. So I haven't seen that. So I don't know if he won or lost, but Nootbaar won his arbitration case. Donovan did not, which was pretty frustrating. I don't know why that didn't happen. So pay the man, pay Donnie. I think it's very interesting that at the same time, if you know if you guys have ever seen Craig Mish before, he is probably the most prominent Marlins beat reporter, well respected in the industry. He just tweeted out a couple hours ago, Marlins have now spent more money in free agency than the Cardinals and the Brewers. So feel free to harass Cardinal and Brewer reporters for that, because the Marlins are notorious for not spending money. And now you have the Cardinals and the Brewers who are not spending any money. Sandy, I know you got to dip in a second. So before you do that, I don't know, any thoughts on the arbitration stuff from today? But then second, like, I know that we've been frustrated by the Cardinals offseason in general. They could have done more, but like, are we overstating, understating, or properly at like level of frustration at the Cardinals' lack of spending specifically this offseason?
I mean, we couldn't possibly overstate it enough. It's ridiculous. They've spent 0 money, literally. I mean, yeah, like a tiny little bit here and there, but if you're among the lowest spenders in baseball, no matter where you are, you're being stupid. Because if you're a true contender, you should be adding to your roster and gearing up for a real title run. That's what the Dodgers do. That's what the Yankees do. That's what even non-giant market teams do, like the Padres. They get that stuff done during the offseason because you have to if you want to get better. You need to improve if you didn't win last year. And if you did win last year, you got to improve to defend your title. If you're not any good, you probably should be taking dart throws and signing guys that are, either low risk, high reward, like a reliever, maybe an Aroldis Chapman type signing. Now, I'm not saying go get specifically Aroldis Chapman. I don't really want him on my team. But there are other guys out there that have been available that are interesting to me. And it's like, hey, if you sign this guy like Keenan Middleton, okay, the Cardinals signed Middleton, and we were excited because we thought he could contribute to the bullpen. He didn't end up pitching for them, but it's like, oh no, they lost $6 million, and it was, not a big deal at all. But maybe at the deadline, you trade that guy for, I don't know, an organization's top 12, top 10 prospect because they want to make a postseason run. And that's a really valuable thing to be able to do. Instead, the Cardinals have done none of that. And so, I don't know. It's just more of the same. It's lazy. It's terrible. And Kareem's right. We do need another reliever anyway. So they've teased it all offseason. They keep saying, oh, we're going to go out there and we're going to get that reliever and we're going to get that right-handed center fielder. They haven't even done any of the things on their wish list.
They got Michael Hellman.
Yeah, I'm not
right-handed center fielder.
And Nick Anderson.
He is 28 and has 10 plate appearances.
He has a higher batting average than Barry Bonds.
Yeah, because he's 3 for 10 in his entire career. Also,
don't talk about sample size.
Yeah, he's got a higher batting average than Albert Pujols. So
I
also
his was over
care about Nick Anderson because the velocity is way down. So
that's one thing I'm not totally convinced of, because I don't know if that video is like him going max velocity. I think they're working on stuff. We'll see. Again, I'm not at all trying to say that was a good, like, that should be the only signing, but I do like dart throws like that.
Yeah, I love dart throws. I'm a big fan. But it's like, I like the dart throws where they're going to be on your roster, and maybe you'll be able to trade them for something at the deadline.
You do both.
Every once in a while, you trade one of these guys for Cole Reagans, okay?
Yeah.
The Cardinals don't even put themselves in a position to try to trade for that guy. Even the Pirates get it done. Like, why can't we?
It's a great point. So frustrating. I know you need to head out, Sandy. So appreciate you hopping in tonight. But we'll finish out the conversation. But
see you guys.
Yeah, see ya. I do think the Sandy's point, though, continuing that. Oh, there was a little bit of a scary moment there. Was he going to end the stream? If you know, you know. That, like, okay, so even if, like, let's just make the argument that, like, okay, it's wise to hold on to some veteran relievers and it's wise to have a couple of veteran starters to make sure you make it through the season. Why not just journey with me for a second? Why not trade the ones you have and sign new ones? So then you get prospects in return.
No, I would never trade Eric Petty. I don't know what you're talking about.
But seriously, it's like
off the table.
Why wouldn't you trade an Eric Fetty and then go out and sign a guy for, okay, I know you'd have to pay a guy a little bit more to even be close to Fetty's reliability, but like, but I mean, even go get Kyle Gibson. Why not? That's the thing I'm like kind of dumbfounded by, because then it's like, okay, whatever you get for Fetty right now, the Helsley one, I'm fine holding, but like, you could have traded him too. Steven Matz, whatever. Then you replace those innings with free agents. And if they perform, then you trade them too, and you build up the system. And even if it's just like a bunch of Sem Robersas and guys like that, like, that's helpful depth, because you can never have enough pitching. And maybe you do get a Thomas JC, maybe you do get a Cole Reagans out of it. Like, who knows? And if it doesn't work, who cares? Because you sign them to the 1-year deals and it's not going to hurt you. So that's maybe the part of the lack of spending that I'm frustrated by. I'm not like, oh, they didn't go get Pete Alonso and they didn't go get Corbin Burns and they didn't like go for it and they didn't try to win. Like, I don't care if they try to win or not. I care if they're trying to be strategic about building for the future. And this is the perfect offseason. They never are in position to go out and sign guys to flip, and they could have done it, and they did nothing. And Nick Anderson, love it. I love some of the lower end signings they're making, but every team does that. So I'm just not going to, I'm not like some people are criticizing him for it. Those moves themselves, love it, but they're supposed to be supplementing the other things, and they're not doing the other things. Am I wrong for thinking that, Andrew? Also, you just became a member for 14 months.
I know.
Congratulations. Look at you.
Anyway, I don't get why they don't go out and make these moves, right? Like, Eric Fetty has so much surplus value, and I don't think he's going to be that good this year. And you could just move him. You could get pieces back. Like, you that's what teams should do. Like, you should churn players like that if you're trying to reset, right? Like, you need to, like, it's so frustrating why they don't just, like, you can get Eric Fetty out of, okay.
Sorry.
Refocus. But you can get Eric Fetty's production out of a free agent. And then you can also get a prospect back for Eric Fetty. And then you can also trade that pitcher at the deadline and get another prospect back. And you could revamp the farm system that way. That's what teams that are rebuilding do. That's what the Rockies do. The Rockies do that like every year. They tried to do that with Dakota Hudson, and then he was terrible and it didn't work. And then they DFA'd him. And that's fine, because they signed him to a minor league deal and it doesn't matter. Right? Like, teams need to go out and do that. And they're signing like Nick Anderson, which is fine. But, like, you need to do more than that, right? Like, it's just whatever. Yeah. I wonder why they don't. Someone needs to ask that. I'm sure Mo gets asked that all the time. And I don't really think he gives great answers to those kinds of questions. So, you know, it feels like to me they're trying to contend with Eric Fetty. But, like, why? You know, like, the Cubs have built a roster that's a lot better than what the Cardinals have right now. And, yeah, there's a world where they win the division. But where do they go after that? The rest of the National League, like, you're not going to get the second seed in the National League. Like, you don't have to worry about playing in an LDS before you play a wild card series, and then you play one of the teams in the National League that's actually has depth and actually, can compete. And then what do you do against like the Braves or the Phillies or the Padres? Like, do you really hope to beat those teams? And then the Dodgers and the Mets or whoever is in the wins those divisions, like it's not going to happen. Like, you need to let it go, and like, you can try to contend with some of the pieces that you bring in, but you should move on from the pieces that have surplus value, right? Like, someone brought it up, like the Cardinals have been like extremely cautious to move some of their pieces, like Steven Matz. Like, why are you cautious to move on from Steven Matz or Eric Fetty? Yeah, you shouldn't be. They have 1 year of control left. They're not part of your future, and then you're just wasting it. So,
yeah, totally. I think one of the things that hello, Andrew's gone for a second. Okay. One of the things that I'm kind of looking at here, are you intentionally gone? Oh, okay, he is. One of the things that I'm looking at, kind of in response to what Andrew just said, is I'm interested to see internal, we're not going to see it. I'm interested to know internal models of if the Cardinals, how much they value, or at least Chaim Bloom specifically values the idea of compensatory picks. Because you look at how he rebuilt this farm system in Boston, and Marcelo Mayer, Kyle Teal were top picks. And so that was really helpful. So that was his JJ Weatherholt. That was his 5th overall pick in the 2025 draft. But one of the things that the Cardinals haven't had in recent years that he had was he got compensatory picks for Xander Bogaerts and someone else left in free agency. I'm forgetting who the other compensatory pick, maybe it was Nathan Eovaldi. And they got Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell out of it, 2 of the top 10 prospects in all baseball right now. And so I do kind of wonder from that perspective when it comes to a Fetty or a Helsley, welcome back, Andrew, is I wonder how much they value the idea of adding extra draft picks to his arsenal. Next year, in the 2026 draft, the highest the Cardinals can draft is 10th overall or 11th overall, because they've picked in the top 10 the past 2 years. So you can't pick in the top 10 3 years in a row. In their position, at least based off revenues. So maybe they like the idea of adding some extra dart throws in there, and trust Bloom's process, trust Flores or the future of whatever their scouting department will look like to rebuild the farm system that way, rather than targeting. And again, I'm sure the offers matter. Like if the Red Sox are offering Christian Campbell for Ryan Helsley right now, I think they'd say yes. But and I don't know what packages they've been getting, but maybe they think, okay, we like this, but we actually would like the pick better, or the pick isn't like, if we end up just getting a pick out of it, it's fine. Like, that's good. So we'll wait till the deadline to see if we can get more in a trade and then compare what we're getting from whatever they value the pick as. That's something that I'm interested in, see going forward, the Cardinals value more. And if they're willing to let guys walk in free agency, knowing they can get a draft pick in return, rather than capitalizing and flipping them like the Rays would have, right? The Rays are going to flip a guy 2 years early rather than let them walk. And that's that one model. Or even a market like Boston, let some guys walk and get some draft picks in return. And so
who are they going to let walk?
Was that?
No one. Like, I don't know. Other than Ryan Helsley, is Fetty worth?
Well, again, in a nutshell, you're probably, actually, if Fetty repeats what he did last year, he's probably worth $21 million annually for 3 or 4 years. But even if he's just close to that, he's probably going to get $16-17 million for 4 years, and he's going to accept a 4-year deal at $16 million, $17 million, rather than a 1-year deal, $20 million. And again, what have we seen all offseason with the A's? And A's went Severino, so that's different. But these contracts that get handed out to guys, I'm not saying I'm not necessarily saying they should do this with Helsley. It makes more sense. Fetty, I think you're playing fire a little bit, expecting him to get a comp pick. But again, starting pitching feels like every offseason just gets more and more expensive. And so a guy like Fetty probably is worth a comp pick at this point, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals get bit in the butt a little bit there, where it's maybe the market changes a little bit next offseason, and other teams are yeah, we'd rather sign Kyle Gibson than give up a draft pick to sign Eric Fetty. But anyways, that's the market we're in. So that's one thing I'm interested to see long term. But again, it doesn't, to me, I think the thing that makes more sense is to trade a Fetty, trade Matz, and go sign a guy and to replace them, or let the young players pitch, or again, sign some guys, flip those guys later. So I don't know. That's one thing to me. But then too, like, again, some of you might listening might be like, well, like, how can we trust the Cardinals to hit on that draft pick and to develop those guys like the Red Sox do? Fair question, but also that's part of the regime change, right? Like next year, it isn't Mo anymore. It's Bloom. It's these new player development guys. It took some years for Boston to work out, but look at their farm system. Like I was listening to Baseball America's podcast talking about the best farm systems in baseball, and they said that they've said even after they traded Braden Montgomery and Kyle Teal, two of the top prospects in all baseball, the Red Sox farm system is still the best farm system in all baseball. And that's what Bloom has built. And doesn't mean it's going to work like swimmingly, but I think it was them or someone else recently like went back and looked at the top. I think it was someone looking at MLB Pipeline's top farm systems every year and how they performed. And most of them end up turning into contenders, where like the Royals had a top one, the Orioles had a top one, the Cubs had a top one. Like if you have the top system in baseball, it doesn't necessarily mean every single player that's at the top of that thing is going to pan out, but it probably means you're going to build a contender in the near future. And so Bloom can do that in St. Louis, which he has more to work off of than he did in Boston at the start. And we've seen what they've done with hitting development there, where they're turning Christian Campbell's and Roman Anthony's into top prospects. It'd be really interesting to see what they do with whatever the future drafts are. So I don't know. I'm not defending necessarily the idea of getting a comp pick, but it is something that I'm intrigued to know how much they value that.
Yeah, I feel like Bloom can also get good prospects back in a trade too.
Yeah, true.
Like there's definitely guys. I mean, the Cardinals are a good example of this. There's guys that go overlooked and like they can get traded for nothing. Like the Dodgers gave up Yordan Alvarez for Josh Fields. Like,
yeah, it's all about your evaluation, right? They think it's worth it, but if they think, okay, so let's say the Cardinals are getting offers back, and again, we're not in the room, but like, and again, we could say, do we trust their valuations or not? But let's say Bloom's player valuations or his the prospect offers they're getting, it's like, okay, like they're fine, but like the way I value a draft pick, it's pretty comparable. So maybe that at that point he's like, okay, let's wait till the deadline, see if we get more. If we get more, trade it. If not, then get the comp pick back. I think for Helsley, that makes a lot of sense. For Feddy's the one where I'm like, I don't know, because I could see him progressing a lot this year or Helsley could get injured, but there's a lot more variance of Feddy, in my opinion, than Ryan Helsley. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we can round out this because Bernie talked about today. Him and I were texting this morning a little bit, and then he put out a video and an article on it. So go Bernie on that one. But interesting conversation. I just want from your perspective, Andrew, and in the chat, if you guys want to fire some stuff off. And I'm sure by the time next recording, we're gonna have a lot more storylines and things from camp. It was a pretty slow day for first takes, pitchers and catchers, but next time we record, Nato should have reported or been traded. So we'll have that and some other stuff. But Andrew, I put this as a poll on Twitter. What do you think is fair expectations for the Cardinals this year? Not prediction. So not what do you think is going to happen, but what do you think we should expect from them? What should be this is what they're set to do? Does that make sense? Or it's like if you were setting a betting line or if you were setting a projection for the Cardinals this year, where would you have them? Are they in the 80s? Are they low 70s? Is it a 75, 78? And so for some context, like most of the projection systems right now have them about as a 78 win team. And then if you look at the sports books, they're talking over-unders at about 75. So neutral outlets right now have them between 75 and 79 wins. Do you think that's fair expectations for them this year? Should expectations be higher in terms of, again, like if they... I think there's no way that any of us are going to be like 75 wins was not a disappointment. Like that is obviously a disappointment from a Cardinal lens. But what do you think is fair to project for the Cardinals this year?
Like fourth place.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like the Cubs and the Brewers. Well, the Cubs have a better roster. The Brewers probably will just do something, and then the Reds. I feel like. I don't know. Everyone always talks about the Reds and how much young talent they have, and then they don't do anything in the offseason, and then they're like, whatever. But I feel like the Reds have more excitement surrounding them for good reason. They have like good players, good young players on that team, and Matt McLean's going to come back, who I like more than their other infielder, but what do I know? I don't know anything about young National League rookies or NL Central rookies.
For the Reds.
I play for the Reds or the Cubs.
Or the Cubs.
Yeah, that's rough.
Here, can I put something real quick? Because I think this is why I think the idea of what's the expectation is so interesting. Is like Kevin put in here like a projection low end 73, high end 84, Kareem 77 to 85. Like that's where I'm at too in terms of if you made me predict, I could say anywhere from 85 to 75. But what should the expectation be? Because that's too wide of a range, right? Like your expectation, it's fair. You could say, I expect it could be any of these things. But like, what would you put the line at? What would you say is like, this is the bar for them that they've set for themselves? Which you said 4th place. So that's helpful. Like wins is wins. For a place in a division's fair too. I think 4th place is probably fair. Like maybe even 5th, but I'd probably say 4th. No. Oh, sorry. Kareem said 77 and 85. So that makes more sense. But I think 75 to 85, like that could happen. Like 80th, 90th percentile, 85 win team, probably 90th percentile. But then like a 50th, or what's the 50th percentile outcome? What's the average outcome for this team?
Like 78 wins. I don't know. I feel like that seems about right. Like everyone talks about, oh, look how good they had such a like poor offense and they still finished over 500 last year. I think part of that is just getting really lucky. I think Ryan Helsley being as good as he was really helped that. Obviously, I believe in Ollie, but I don't know if I believe in Ollie to do that again, right? Like teams often regress to their standards, like run differential standards. I remember the Mariners made the playoffs with a terrible run differential a couple years ago, and then last year had a better run differential and just did worse. And like these things happen with that, and run differential can be fluky like year to year, but I feel like it's better at predicting like how a roster will do in the future than it will like in the current. It's kind of like FIP, a little bit like that, like more expected. I feel like just they outperformed a lot of stuff last year, so I don't think it's necessary. Like if everyone plays, I think everything would have to go right for this team to have a repeat of what happened last year to be better. And especially because they didn't add anybody. And like, even if Walker is really good and Gorman is really good and Newt Bar stays healthy, like they're probably still sitting around like 85 wins. Like it's probably not much better than it was last year.
Yeah, I think I'd put it in the like, my expectation is that like 77 wins, where I think that's pretty fair. 77, 78 wins. Maybe I'll say 78. That's 5 games worse than they were last year. And to your point, like, yeah, the offense was so bad. And even if it bounces back, it's baking in. The bullpen's probably not going to be as good. I think it could be good, but like, is it going to be the same? I don't maybe. I think that's going to be tough. I think you could make a pretty good argument the rotation should be better because Sonny Gray, I don't expect to regress, and the actual traditional numbers weren't as good as you would hope. And I think he's going to be better in that realm. You get a full season of Fetty, which again, even if he's not the same guy he was last year, guy he was last year is a 3.15 guy. So like if he's like a 3.8, 3.9 ERA guy, like that's your second or third best starter last year. Andre Palante, you get a full season out of that. Your top 3 is already so much better than it was last year. Because what was your top 3 last year? Like before those 2 emerged or traded for, it was Gray, Michaelis, but then he like clearly wasn't, but he was supposed to be. So it was like Gray, Gibson, Lynn. I think Gray, Palante, Fetty is way better than that. I mean, I shouldn't say actually. It's a step or 2 above that. So that's improvement there. And then you expect in the lineup. But even so, I think you expect the NL Central to be stronger. The Cubs are better. The Brewers maybe regress a little bit, but should still be good. The Reds should be better. The Pirates should be better. So it's going to be harder to win games in the Central. I think the NL in general should be a little bit better. I mean, the Mets look pretty good. Philly should be great again. Braves, Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks. So I think 77, 78 is where I'd put like the projections at. But then, of course, like if we're making predictions, then you could be like, well, if the young bats perform, the rotation's a little bit better and the bullpen's about the same, they should win more games. But if some of those things don't happen, they could easily lose more games. So
yeah,
I think it's a really interesting conversation.
And we're due to make predictions probably like in a month, so it's too early. But I know Sandy will have us winning the World Series, and then whatever.
Not there this year.
I don't even think I'm going to have them in my playoff picture.
I had them in the playoffs last year, but I think I had the Dodgers.
I don't think you can this
Yankees.
year. Yeah, you got it right on. I had the Blue Jays over the Dodgers because I thought it would be funny, and I make all my predictions.
It would have been funny.
So, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, when that time comes, I don't even think I'll have the Cardinals in my playoff picture for this year.
Yeah.
It's tough because I want them there, but
yeah.
I don't think I can. I know Sandy will have them as the third wild card team and have them winning the World Series.
I really don't think a third wild card is crazy to say.
No,
it's just not.
I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's tough because it's not like when you talk about the Braves, like their low end outcome is a wild card, right, or barely missing the playoffs, and their high ends win the World Series. The Cardinals' high end outcome is can they sneak into the playoffs, not be a powerhouse, right? I don't know how they win the division this year. I just don't. I don't think it's impossible.
I think it's in the range of outcomes. Like the Cubs could just be really bad.
Yeah, those things. But
if Kyle Tucker gets hurt, then that team is not that team is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's just like we're in the range of outcomes because you still have the Brewers and the Reds. Is this the year they finally make good on their promise? So that's where I'm like range of outcomes wise. That's like 90th percentile that the Cardinals win the division, but the 50th percentile is probably missed the playoffs. So where in the positive percentiles do you get where they're even a wild card team? That's 70th. I don't know. I mean,
I think there's a real chance that all three wild card teams are better than the team that comes out of the NL Central. And there might even be a fourth team that comes out. There might be a fourth NL team that's better than that team. I don't know if
it's a good point
because the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks, and then the Braves, the Mets, and the I forgot the Phillies. One of those teams has to miss the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think right. Did I get that right?
Well, so let's say the Dodgers, Cubs, and Phillies win their divisions. And you still have the three wild cards. You have the Braves, the Mets, the Padres, the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, so I think it's
Brewers, Reds.
Yeah, but I think there's a real shot that there's a team that misses the playoffs that's worse or that's better than the NL Central winner.
Yeah, I could see it.
It's very possible. So.
It's definitely possible. So yeah, to your point, maybe that is the path where it's like maybe there's a percentile outcome where they make they win the division, but they're they have the lowest win total of any of the playoff teams. So,
and there's a chance that they what if they made the playoffs with an 80 and 82 record? That'd be really funny.
I mean, what was it? 2006, 82 wins, 83 wins. They made the playoffs.
83 or 84. It wasn't that good, but
so again, not trying to say this is the 2006 team. It is not, but. Those things happen sometimes, right? So 2 years ago, what the Diamondbacks made out 83 or 84 wins.
Yep.
So,
but that was in a weaker NL where not every single team was trying.
For sure. But then, I mean, we always even last year, it was we had I think we all thought the Braves would be way better than they were. And then we had conversations at one point, are they going to miss the playoffs? So you just never really know what'll happen. But I love this term, and it might be the rallying cry of this Cardinal team now. The younger players on the Cardinals, they're not.
No, it's a combination of young and hungry. That's what it means, John.
I know, but I'm taking it more as the younger, as in they're not quite young, because they have all the veterans in the rotation and I know what he meant by it, but I heard it as I'm like it fits way more than even Vic meant. But I like that they are younger. I like that they have some fight in them. They're ready to prove people wrong. So we'll defend Ollie for it, I guess.
I hope so. I would like this team to make the playoffs, but it's probably not going to happen.
How many people genuinely don't want them to see them succeed? Because you always have those people, but is that a growing number? I think there are people that just want to see the Cardinals burn within the
because they can't even get a draft pick.
They're
not even going. It's not there's no point.
I think they more just want to be proven right, where it's they just want to be They are sick of
those are like one or two specific people on Twitter that I have muted. So like,
true. That's what I'm saying. I wonder if it's grown where it's not like one or two people anymore. It's 10. Like I don't know. This is maybe a dumb question, but I mean, at the end of the day, most people do want to see him succeed, right? So we had this conversation last time. It's like, what is actually going to bring fans to the ballpark? Is winning enough? I don't know if it fully is. I think it's the style of winning too. Like, is it winning because Eric Fetty's really good and Michaelis rebounds and you think
Michaelis is not rebounding,
but
maybe
like
he rebounds in NPB when we DFA him, but
like if he's like a helpful, like, what's the way you win? And is it like last year where it felt pretty smoke and mirrors, or is it, oh wow, you could see some real potential in this team? So anyways, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to monitor that as we go through, but I don't really think there's a whole lot else today. Sorry, I kind of thought there'd be a lot more out of camp today, but I do think the next time we record, which will either be an emergency pod for a Nolan Arenado trade, or it will be because Nolan's reported to camp. So we'll have more Nolan talk, that's for sure. And then I think we'll see some other stuff too. So yeah, I'm very intrigued by what's going to happen with some of these young arms as they come through and which ones start to show up and show out a little bit. Like some people have noticed Tink looks a little bit bigger. Did you see that picture of JJ the other day, Weatherholt?
Yeah, I did.
He looks jacked.
I don't want him to make break camp.
There's no way.
Take it slow, guys. Come on.
There's no way JJ's gonna get a break camp.
Send him to Peoria. I know you'll go out and use code Newt News on SeatGeek when you spend money on those tickets, but
I wish they put him in. There's no way he's gonna start AA. I wish he would have been in high A last year so I could have seen him. But to add to that though, I don't know if you saw that video where I can't remember what bat company JJ went to. And if you guys haven't checked it out, just go check out JJ Weatherhole on YouTube. You'll probably find it. He went to one of the bat things and they did the different measurements on him and some projectability. And they found that his max exit velocity, what they think he should be able to do, puts him in like the top 7 in all baseball for what last year was. So like that's like he's sneaky, got that power. Not power as in like, we're not talking he's gonna be a 30, 40 home run guy, but like that dude can hit the ball. This is a different guy. Like the Cardinals have not had a hitting prospect like this in a while. So
pitching prospect or any prospect.
It's true because the thing that's different is like Jordan Walker and Dylan Carlson didn't jump into the system as this good of prospects. They developed into that, and the league saw them as that. JJ Weatherholt's entering as this. Like, so if he grows, it's like, okay, this dude, I'm excited. So I do think there's an outside chance you see him in St. Louis this year, but very low, very low. And it's very end of the year, not like.
Kareem, I wonder if the Cardinals had the 5th pick last year, if they would have taken someone else. But whatever.
Hey, maybe they go get Jamie Arnold, like he said this year. Maybe it's, I don't know, too early to tell. But once we get that official Kareem prediction, then you don't have to watch the draft. You already know who they're picking. So
no, you have to tune into our draft live stream to see him party with us.
That's true. You have to do that. So, all right, I think we're mostly done with this today. But again, always appreciate the support, everyone. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. Like and subscribe helps the channel out a ton. We're going to continue to ramp up coverage as spring training gets underway. If you go on our Twitter, you can see that there's some stuff being teased. So for some content on Birds on the Farm, big things coming, Kareem. Yes, which I'm excited to see what happens with STL Sports Hub. That seems like a really cool endeavor that's starting with a lot of our friends. And
there's big things coming for us too.
But there are big things coming for us. So we've got prospect videos, maybe a really cool interview coming soon. I'm just saying. That's all I'm going to say.
We're interviewing Kareem again.
I will say, as much as I love Kareem, I think we will all agree if this person is on the pod, a little more exciting. And Kareem's exciting, right? So if this person's on, I can't state enough how fun it will be. So I'm excited for that potentially. Actually, no, I think it's gonna happen. Obviously our episodes will keep coming, and yeah, we're excited that you all hang with us. Really appreciate the support as always. Like and subscribe helps channel a ton. And yeah, we'll see whether Nolan gets traded or he reports to the camp in a few days.